People think affairs end in passion. Mine ended with my best friend standing in my doorway, silent, holding proof of 10 years of betrayal. If you looked at our street from above, it would seem peaceful. Two neat houses facing each other, kids' bikes leaning against fences, the smell of backyard grills drifting between yards. But every time I drive down that road now, my stomach twists. Because the quietest places are always the ones hiding the loudest lies. My name doesn't matter. What matters is the 10 years I spent being a fool. 10 years watching two families fall apart in slow motion while I stood there, blind to all of it. I grew up next to them. To me, they were the kind of neighbors you bragged about. The kind that made you feel lucky. The kind that built a world so normal, so welcoming, that you never questioned what shadows lived behind the curtains. Family 1 lived in the brick house on the left. The husband was a long-haul truck driver, gone for days, sometimes weeks. His wife stayed home with the kids, running the household with the soft, effortless warmth of someone built for family life. She was the come over for tea type, the I baked too much, take some type. Family 2 lived across from them. The husband worked shifts at the local plant, the wife ran her own small shop downtown. She was sharp, busy, always on her phone, always moving. Her husband was the calm one, the steady one, the kind of guy you trusted without thinking. And the two men, they were inseparable, best friends, the brother from another mother kind. They barbecued together, fixed each other's cars, spent holidays side by side. When one bought a house on our street, the other joked, "Guess you're stuck with me for life." They laughed. Everyone laughed. Nobody suspected how long that sentence would echo. In the beginning, everything looked perfect from the outside. Weekends smelled like grilled meat and cheap beer. Birthdays meant balloons strung between mailboxes. Holidays meant swapping dishes over fences, and kids running in and out of both homes like the whole street was one big shared playground. Then the kids came. Then the schedules got tighter. Then the babysitting system began. The wives came up with it, a simple, genius solution. If one couple needed time alone, the other watched the kids. No suspicion, no tension. A well-oiled machine built on trust. "Have you seen my husband? He's probably helping with the kids." "Sure, leave them here. Mine are already playing." "We'll be across the street if you need anything." It was seamless, harmless, perfect. And that's why it worked, because the easiest place to hide is right in the middle of everyone's trust. No one looks there. It started subtly, the truck driver's wife and the plant worker spending more time together. At first, it was innocent, making lunch for the kids, helping with school projects, sitting on the porch while the children chalked the sidewalks. No one questioned it. Why would they? Two families, two friendships, two houses reflecting each other like mirrors. But sometimes mirrors hide cracks. I remember one quiet afternoon, the kind where the sun seems to hold its breath, when I saw them sharing a look across the yard. Not romantic, not obvious. Just a moment. Too long. Too heavy. The kind of look you only understand years later when the puzzle finally clicks together and you realize the corner pieces were in place all along. But back then, I brushed it off. Everyone did. Besides, the truck driver was almost always gone, and the shop owner. She was barely home. It made sense that their spouses helped each other. It made sense that they depended on one another. It made sense, until it didn't. 10 years. 10 years of birthday parties, shared holidays, dinners across the street, kids growing up like cousins. 10 years of a lie so deeply woven into their lives that it became part of the routine. A lie calibrated to the schedules of two hard-working spouses who trusted their partners more than they should have. And all it took to unravel was one stupid, accidental, impossible-to-ignore moment. But I'll get to that, because the truth didn't break out all at once. It leaked. Quietly, slowly, like water seeping through a wall until one day the whole thing collapses and you realize the foundation wasn't solid at all. And when it finally broke, it broke everyone. If you're still listening, buckle up. This isn't a story about cheating. It's a story about how it destroys everything it touches, even the people who think they're safe from it. And trust me, no one was safe. It started with something small. It always does. One late October evening, the kind where the wind tastes like winter and the sky hangs low. The shop owner came home early. She wasn't supposed to. She'd told her husband she had inventory to handle, a delivery to sort out. But the supplier cancelled last minute, so she drove home, expecting nothing more dramatic than maybe catching her husband napping with the TV still on. Instead, she found the house empty. Lights off, kids gone. No note. At first, nothing seemed strange. Maybe the kids were across the street. Maybe her husband had walked them over. Maybe he was helping the neighbor with something. But then she checked her phone. A message from her husband, sent an hour earlier. "Still at the plant. Overtime. Don't wait up." She frowned, scanned the quiet street, and something in her chest tightened. A feeling she couldn't name yet. Not suspicion, not fully. More like a whisper behind her ribs, a wrong note in an otherwise familiar song. She stepped outside. The air felt colder than it should. Across the street, the truck driver's house glowed warm, the soft kind of yellow that always looked like safety. She crossed the road. Just as she lifted her hand to knock, she heard something inside. Not laughter, not talking, just movement. Too quiet for kids, too heavy for a cartoon playing in the background. Her hand froze mid-air. A second passed, then another. And then the door opened, not fully, just cracked, and the truck driver's wife peeked out. She looked startled. Not guilt-startled. More like interrupted. "Oh, hey," she said, brushing her hair back too quickly. "You scared me." "Are my kids here?" the shop owner asked. A pause, a small one. "Barely noticeable, unless you were looking for it." Yeah, they're watching a movie inside with mine. Come in." But she didn't step aside. Not yet. Something was off, a tension in her shoulders, a flush on her neck. The kind of details you ignore unless your brain has already started connecting dots you don't want to see. Before anything else could be said, footsteps echoed inside, heavier than a child's. Then a man's silhouette appeared in the hallway. Her husband. Not at the plant. Not working overtime, standing inside another woman's house. The shop owner's heart didn't break, not yet. First came the confusion, then the cold, then the kind of quiet that feels like the air right before a storm tears a roof off. She didn't yell, didn't scream, didn't accuse. She just said, in a voice that felt too calm for her shaking hands, "You weren't supposed to be home." He froze. His eyes flicked to his best friend's wife, then back to his own. "I came to drop something off," he said. His voice cracked around the edges. "What?" she asked. Another pause, longer this time. "Tools," he whispered. But there were no tools. No box. Nothing. The silence between the three of them thickened so much it felt like the house was shrinking around it. The truck driver's wife stepped forward, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's not what it looks like." That sentence, that cursed sentence, is the strongest admission of guilt in the world. You only say it when it is exactly what it looks like. The shop owner didn't respond. She simply turned, walked into the living room, and found all the children asleep under blankets, a movie playing quietly. And there, on the coffee table, were 2 coffee mugs, both still warm, 1 lipstick mark, 2 wedding rings sitting far too close together. It wasn't proof, not fully, but it was enough to break something deep inside her. Not her marriage, not yet, but her certainty. Certainty is the first thing to die. When she left the house, she didn't slam the door. She didn't say a word to the man who had sworn to spend his life with her. She just walked back home, sat alone at her kitchen table, and finally allowed the first question to form. How long? She didn't know the answer, not yet, but she would. And the truth, once it came out, wouldn't just burn her life down, it would torch both families to the ground. Because that night wasn't the discovery, it was just the beginning. The real revelation, the one that exposed 10 years of betrayal, came later. And it was so stupid, so random, so cosmically absurd, that it felt like fate was tired of waiting. It took months before the truth surfaced. Not because people were careful, cheaters rarely are, but because life has a sick sense of humor. The kind where it waits for the most ordinary moment, the most harmless detail, and then uses it like a knife. And when it finally happened, it didn't just expose one betrayal, it exposed 10 years of them. Not one affair, a decade-long routine, a system. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Back then, after the night my wife found me in my best friend's house, everything went cold. She didn't accuse me of anything, but the silence between us was louder than a confession. I told myself the same lies every guilty man tells. It's over. It won't happen again. I'll fix this. And for a while, I really tried to believe it. But addiction isn't always to substances or thrills. Sometimes it's to secrecy, to the feeling of being wanted in a way you aren't at home, to the quiet thrill of knowing something no one else does. And she knew that. My friend's wife. She knew exactly which parts of me were weak and which buttons to press. It didn't start with passion. It started with loneliness. 2 people who shouldn't have been left alone together. 2 people who filled each other's empty spaces. Once a week, sometimes twice. Always when our spouses worked late, always under the guise of helping with kids. Panda, the perfect cover. 10 years of stolen hours, 10 years of dumb luck keeping us safe. And then, like all bad habits, it became invisible, a normal part of the routine. Until her husband retired. That's when everything fell apart. He was a truck driver his whole life, gone for days, sometimes weeks. But after an injury that messed up his back, he stopped working. Suddenly, he was home, all the time, watching, noticing, connecting dots. At first, he ignored the signs, because every betrayed partner does. You tell yourself you're being paranoid. You tell yourself you're overthinking. You tell yourself the person you chose couldn't possibly be lying to your face. But lies leak, and secrets rot from the inside out. The breaking point came in the stupidest way possible. A phone bill. He'd never checked it before. She always handled the paperwork. But after he retired, he decided to save money by switching plans. The company printed out a detailed call history. And there it was. My number. dozens of times a week, at hours that made no sense. Short calls, long calls, missed calls, texts. A pattern even a blind man could see. He didn't confront her right away. He waited, observed, measured her movements, her excuses, her routines. And then came the moment I'll never forget, because it detonated all of our lives in the span of 5 minutes. That evening, my wife and kids were out. I was home alone, fixing the leaky sink in the bathroom when I heard pounding on my front door. Not knocking. Pounding. Like someone ready to rip it off the hinges. I opened it, and there he was, the truck driver, my best friend. The man whose kids played with mine, whose house felt like an extension of ours, whose trust I treated like trash for a decade. He wasn't yelling. That was the worst part. His voice was steady, quiet, like someone who'd passed the stage of anger and arrived at something colder. "You and I need to talk," he said. I stepped aside. He walked in, sat down at my kitchen table like he'd done 100 times before, only this time he kept his hands flat on the surface, not clenched, but steady enough to scare me. Then he slid the phone bill across the table. "Explain." Just one word. Explain. And for the first time in 10 years, I couldn't. My mouth tried to form excuses, but my brain had nothing. Every lie sounded pathetic even to myself. Every explanation dissolved before it reached my tongue. So I told the truth. All of it. Not out of courage, not out of guilt, but because in that moment, staring at the man whose life I'd helped destroy, lying felt even worse than what I'd already done. When I finished, he didn't hit me, didn't scream, didn't throw anything. He just nodded once, a small, sharp motion, and said, "I suspected it was going on for a while." A pause. "But 10 years? You couldn't even leave me one honest decade?" He stood up, looked around my kitchen, looked at the home he'd helped me build, the life he thought he understood. Then he said something I'll hear until I die. "I trusted you with everything, and you repaid me with routine." Routine. That word cut deeper than anything else. Then he left, just walked out the door, as calmly as he'd walked in. And that was the moment the whole neighborhood found out. Because he didn't go home. He went across the street. He told my wife first. And she didn't cry. She just looked at me like I was a stranger who'd broken into her life. By the end of the night, both marriages were over. Not from shouting or fights, but from collapse. The kind that happens when the foundation turns out to be dust. And the kids. God, the kids! 2 families, 10 years intertwined, ripped apart by something so avoidable it feels insulting. As for me, let's just say there's a special kind of loneliness reserved for men who burn down their own lives. I moved out within a week, found a cheap apartment, started therapy, stopped drinking, stopped pretending. And the piece that haunts me most isn't the affair itself. It's the fact that it lasted so long, so quietly, so seamlessly, that it took a phone bill to expose it. 10 years of deception, destroyed in 5 minutes because fate finally got bored of waiting.